You want that local home feel. These folks are your neighbors. They know your pet. They know your background. They're asking about your family. It's a completely different level of care.
Welcome to the Veterinary Insider Podcast, the podcast for veterinarians who want to learn more about how business drives the practice of veterinary medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Bonnie Bragdon. This podcast is powered by the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association, dedicated to delivering benefits to independent practices. Today we have Tyler Dyer from Merchant Cost Consulting. His superpower is helping veterinarians save money so veterinarians can lower the cost of care. He's going to share with us his no-risk approach for cost savings to your business. Well, hello, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Bonnie, appreciate you having me. Excited to share a little bit about what we do and chat about the industry.
All right, Tyler, I'm really going to challenge you here. You know, credit card processing fees, I know that's your jam. I know that's what you live for, but kind of help my audience understand why on God's green earth should veterinarians care about credit card processing fees?
Well, yeah, I mean they're not the most exciting thing to talk about. They are boring, and because they are boring, they get overlooked. And for independent vets, for any business out there, it's one of those line items that tends to get overlooked. And when it gets overlooked, it tends to be a bigger expense at the end of the year. So it's definitely something that, yes, not exciting, but 100% should be something that's looked at. So at the end of the year, when you guys run that P&L, you're not missing out on any money under the table.
Yeah, so Tyler, I'm going to challenge you even more. You know, what about those associate veterinarians? You know, part of the purpose of the podcast is to really help veterinarians understand how their medicine and their practice is driven by business. You know, I hear all the time associates don't understand fees. Associate veterinarians might not understand why the cost of care is so high. We hear clients complaining all the time, it costs too much when I take my pet to the veterinarian. And I know you and I had a really good, deep conversation around how these hidden fees are really inflating the cost, and they may even be, you know, causing some pet owners to not go to the veterinarian. So kind of give us an understanding of what the scope is of this problem.
Yeah, I mean, just like everything else out there, prices are going up. So when there's prices going up, you're going to see it in all areas. So if your processing fees are going up and you're not really sure why my profits aren't as high as they used to, most people they'll add it on the back end so that to make up for it. And so as someone who brings in, you know, my dog, I'm going to see that because, well, the business got to make up for this silly cost. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, and let's kind of break it down into some nuts and bolts. And so for those of us in the audience who don't really understand credit card processing, so let's start from square one. So I take my dog to the veterinarian. The receptionist says to me, "Hey, Bonnie, it's going to cost you $1,000 today." So I don't see those fees in my bill. The associate veterinarian doesn't see those fees. And really the only way to see those fees is as the business owner, like you said, when you look at it or actively review it on a periodic basis. So as a customer, when I pay that $1,000, how much of that $1,000 is actually going for me to hand over my credit cards? I'm handing over my credit card. I say, put it on my credit card or my debit card or prepaid card or even Apple Pay. How much of that $1,000 actually is going outside of veterinary medicine, is going to these processing fees?
That's a good question, and it ranges. And it's one of those things for as a consumer, it's out of sight, out of mind. So when you're going to a restaurant or vet clinic, you want to get those points. You want to fly to Florida for free, but ultimately somebody has to pay for it, and it's the business owner. So if you're spending $1,000, the business owner is going to eat anywhere from 2, 3, sometimes even 4 or 5% of that. And it may not sound like a big percent, but over a month or over a year, it's a huge expense. It's a huge expense. So, yeah, anywhere from 2 to 5%, sometimes unfortunately even
Whoa,
higher. Yeah,
5%. That's
yeah,
insane. So,
yes.
but as a small business owner, I try to look at those credit card processing fees, but I lose track of it. I'm much more concerned on actually delivering a good customer experience. So the average, right? My average expectation would be like 2 to 3%, but you're saying fees can be as high as 5%. What's the highest you've ever seen?
Uh, I'm not even sure I want to share that, but we've seen even 9%, and yeah, it's it's like anything else. If you don't look at it, it's like your cable bill. If it goes up every year, you're out of the promotional period. This new fee is added for whatever reason. The payment industry is like that, but on steroids. And unfortunately, it's not really regulated. So as long as you're not looking at it, these payment companies are adding in a fee in small increments, but over, 6 to 12 months, it tends to add up. So yeah, it can get really high, unfortunately.
If we do the math, right, and forgive me, sometimes my math is not so good live. So out of every $100 of revenue, if we go with our 8 to 9% range, that's $8 to $9 out of that $100 bill that's simply going to some service out there. On $1,000, right? If my math is right, that's $80 to $90 on $1,000 bill. That's a couple vaccines. That's 3 months of flea control. That's 2 veterinary visits, and the average, veterinarian probably produces, 500,000. So if I round up, that's as much. Ooh, I can't do math like I said. So if we're spending as much as $100 per thousand, you know, that's a huge amount of money every year. Just lost to both veterinarians and consumers.
Yeah, it's money under the table, and yeah, eight and nine is definitely on the substantially higher side. 3, 4, 5 is probably what we see a little bit more, but yeah, I mean it adds up. It adds up quick.
So, all right, when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, I saw a lot of acronyms. I was very confused and overwhelmed. Let's see if I look at my notes. It's like CNP and PYPL and credit card interchange. And I saw a really interesting article, talking about a lawsuit between, I think, Visa and MasterCard, and something about the interchange settlement. So, for my listeners who don't even really understand credit card processing fees, what's that all about? Is that going to help us at all?
Yeah, so there was a recent lawsuit for against Visa, Mastercard, all the major card brands, basically overcharging. So all you have to do is go in and file a claim, and you can actually get some money back for the years of being overcharged. So luckily, we were able to bring it up to the table and bring it to our clients to help put a little bit more money in their pocket. But yeah, I mean, these companies, like I said, it's not really regulated. This is one of the few instances where we got a chance to take a big win.
All right, so now let's stop for a moment. Hopefully, we all understand these credit card processing fees. If you're a business owner, it erodes your profit. If you're a consumer, you should care because that's less money you actually get a service or a good for. If you're an associate veterinarian, you're going to worry. Now my clients aren't going to be able to get the care that I really recommend because they're having to really manage the bottom line. So let's take a step back and help me understand what you specifically do for merchant cost consulting. So the company you work for, Merchant Cost Consulting, help me understand what it is you do and why we should listen.
Yeah, so we're obviously in the payment industry, but we're a little bit different from your typical credit card processor. So if you are a veterinary owner or business owner, you get these calls all the time. What makes us different is that we're on your side. So what I mean by that is we essentially go to bat for you with your current processor to help you drive that cost down. So there's no switching from your current software. Maybe you have a great practice management software that runs your business that integrates with a specific processor. There's no changes. We come in there, we look at your data, we go to bat for you and drive it down, and that's really it. And if we're successful, it's a win-win.
So I'm going to take a step back here again for my listeners. I hope we will have a few listeners who are veterinarians hoping to own a practice, as well as current business owners. And so we talked about something very kind of boring, credit card processing fees. We put that into the context of how much it cost us. Now let's talk about the systems, Tyler. So when my associate veterinarian or my technician enters that patient information into what's called a practice management software, that practice management software then has to connect with a credit card processing company to actually collect the money and put that into your bank account, and then not only put it into your bank account, but then say, hey, yeah, this client has paid his or her bill. We've actually collected the money and put it into the bank account. So you and I had actually a fairly deep conversation about how not all practice management software systems are created equal. Not to name names, although we do like controversy. We like mixing things up and being challenging. We're not going to name any names here. You might want to spell it, things like that. I'm teasing. But what I heard you say previously, and help me really dig into the details of this, some practice management software programs, they are also your credit card processor, right? Help me understand. What is that? I don't understand.
Yeah, a lot of times, these processing companies are smart. So what they do is they partner up with, these software companies to have exclusive integration. So that means that in order to use that practice management software, you have to use their preferred processor. And because of that, on the processing side, they see that. So they know that, well, unless you're willing to completely change your operation or, leave your current practice management software, we kind of got you in handcuffs. So because of that, we tend to see higher rates.
So I'm going to give you a for instance, and I can name names because this is outside the veterinary industry. I own a uniform store. I sell scrubs. We have a system called Uniform Solutions, and that system runs our inventory. It runs our website. It runs all of the data we look at to understand how our collections, our contracts, all of those things. It's a great program for running the business itself. It's the backbone of running the business. But it's it's only actually one of two systems that manages my business. So it's very similar to a practice management software. So it's similar to Cornerstone or EasyVet or Hippo. It runs my business. Well, I have no choice. The only processor I can use is Uniform Pay. Uniform Pay is part of Uniform Solutions. They will not integrate with any other processor. I have no choices. So I am really beholden to Uniform Solutions and Uniform Pay. So if we just use me as an example, make it easy that way, we don't get into trouble. Like, how would Merchant Cost Consulting and you personally, Tyler, walk me through the process of how you could help me specifically?
Yeah, so exactly the same scenario. You guys are all tied together. So our approach, it's obviously our knowledge in the space. We know what to look for, what can go where. But we somewhat operate like a buying group in the sense that we have, thousands of clients who are using a similar software, a similar processor. So when we go reach out to your vendor, we're able to use not only our knowledge, but all of our data, our buying power to help you guys drive down that cost. So that's the biggest difference from, a business owner calling in and requesting savings versus us. We're able to use our knowledge, go very specific in our requests, but also loop in our buying power to get that cost down without having to lose that integration or make any major changes.
So, first and foremost, walk me through it. I call you up. I say, hey, Tyler, I need your help. And then you gain access. We add you as a user to the system. You take a look at what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. We give your statement like a full analysis. So just like if I were to bring my pet in and I say, what's going on, same thing. We're going to take a deep dive in your data, look at every line item, see what stands out, and then we'll present it back to you and say, hey, here's a few areas of concern. Here's where we can help. Here's what we believe we can save you, and here's the process. If everything checks out and those numbers make sense and the savings are substantial, we just get authorized on your account. We call in on your behalf. We go to bat for you, and then we come back and hopefully at that time present some really good results.
All right, Tyler. I don't like making waves. That's a lie. I love making waves. But for my listeners out there who maybe are a little reticent,
Yeah.
don't really want to do this, we had a rumor, right? We had an email come in to the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association, right? We had a rumor come in that, these processing companies were being, vindictive. They were not wanting to play well. That this was a scam. All kinds of things that just weren't true. So can you tell me some common misconceptions and myths about working with merchant cost consulting?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that we get looped into the lump sum of credit card processors, and we are absolutely not a credit card processor. So very quickly, our background, my background, we used to all work for large payment processor, credit card processors. So we know the ins and the outs. But as far as the industry in a whole, it's not the most morally transparent business to be in. We were all on that side of the fence. We saw an opportunity to jump on the other side of the fence and go to bat for the business owner. So I think the biggest misconception about MCC is that we're another credit card processor. And if you've been in business for a while, you've probably had multiple and had similar experiences. So that's where you lean on us, and we kind of, get under the table a little bit and show the good side and, be that shoulder to lean on in this space.
Tyler, you just revealed to me your insider status. So thank you very much. You shared a secret that veterinarians don't know about the business of veterinary medicine, and that secret is from your side, when you worked on the processing side, these fees are put in place without an understanding by the business owner, because at the end of the day, we can only know so much, we can only manage and monitor so much, and that's where you come in with your superpower and your hero status, and you help animals get care by helping veterinarians save money.
Yes.
So in this day and age of inflation, that's a really important superpower, Tyler. So thank you very much for being an insider.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
So an alternative might be, maybe I'm going to do it myself. Maybe I'm going to change my practice management software. I'm going to shop different credit card processing. I'm going to play them against each other, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to whittle it down. I can already tell you how I'm feeling about that, but help me understand why, blowing your system up and doing it yourself, the pros and the cons of taking that approach.
Yeah, I mean, short term, you may be able to achieve some results, right? I mean, there's no secret that you can call into any vendor that you have and bring up your cost and see what they can do for you. That they'll do one of two things. They'll say, well, we can't, or maybe they throw you a bone for $100 a month, and hopefully that makes you quiet for a little bit. But in terms of changing, it can be a lot, and if you're up and operating every day, it's not always seamless. So changing is difficult. Can you achieve some short-term savings? Yes. The issue with changing is that in 6 to 12 months, you may likely be back to where you started. So for all that work, was it worth the savings? Maybe, maybe not. And then second to that, if you're practicing in the space and you're seeing, patients and clients, do you have the bandwidth to spend days, hours, weeks going back and forth with these processors to drive this cost down? Do you know what you're asking for? Yes, again, you may be able to achieve some short-term savings, but it's an ongoing thing. So it's about time as well. How do you value your time? I mean, you can achieve some savings, but how much are you stepping away from adding business, driving revenue? Yes, it's definitely important. Look at it. If you are confident you can do it, take a shot. But weigh that cost out when it comes to your time. Is that worth it? So those are the, I guess, two biggest things. The switching can be a lot, and then your time.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a horror story. So, what happens on the podcast stays on the podcast, right? Ha ha ha. So, I'm going to share all of my dirty secrets as a business owner and all the mistakes that I've made because I hope others do not make the mistake. I thought for sure I found a new system to manage my store. I started to make the transition. I signed up for their integrated system. Starts with a W with a P in the middle. Might be World Pay. So set up with this integrated credit card processing. Well, I didn't read the contract well, and the contract said that if I stopped the contract earlier, I was going to pay a penalty and I was going to pay a fee. Well, when I went and I decided not to go with that new system and I said, look, I'm tapping out, I'm done. I tried a new system, a new practice management system. I was going to work with your credit card processing. After thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, I'm tapping out. I'm done. I'm going to go back to my old system. I give up. Well, they kept charging my bank account $109 a month because that was almost a nightmare to get undone. So over the course of a year, I spent about $1,000, $100 every month that I couldn't get undone. When I finally got the right person in place to get it undone, they then bounced my checking account because they withdrew $499 unexpectedly. And when I said, whoa, that's got to be a mistake, you overcharged me, they're like, no, here's the contract you signed with the $499 penalty for early termination. So I can tell you the $1,500 I wasted on a system I never, not once used was a really painful experience that no, it is not worth blowing up the system and starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, super common, very common. We see it all the time, and that's I think that's what is unique about us. We don't interrupt your current operation, so we just come in, drive that cost down. You won't even know we're there. But in your situation, I hear that story almost every day. So,
yeah. And it's just one of those things. You're like, it's only $100. Is it worth it to me to see one less patient? Average patient charge of $250,
right?
Or an hour of my time on the phone.
Right.
So you're always weighing that cost, and then it just gets under your skin, and it's just one more thing that erodes your profit in practice. So not very much fun at all.
And nobody really reads every page of your agreement.
Nope.
Especially when it's 10 to 12 pages long. You just want to get up and running. So
yep.
Again,
all right,
they sneak stuff.
I'm going to ask you another really boring question that is just like makes my eyeballs want to pop out of my head. PCI compliance. What in God's green earth is PCI compliance, and why do I continue to be charged for this?
PCI compliance is basically it's another, I don't want to say it, but it's a BS fee in the payment space. And essentially the payment industry wants to make sure that you're compliant, make sure you're taking the cards correctly, make sure you're taking their info correctly, make sure you're storing it correctly, make sure you're using the right equipment, software, etc. And in order to be compliant, each processor is a little bit different, but you have to go through this lengthy survey of questions, make sure you answer them correctly to ensure that you guys are compliant. That can take some time, but if you answer those incorrectly or if you're actually not compliant, you'll get pinged a fee anywhere from $10 upwards to $100 a month for being in compliance. So that's something that we help our clients with, but that's something that you guys as veterinary owners can do. Something you want to, if you want to take a peek at your statement and you see that's on there, that fee can be removed. Call in, they'll help you walk through it, but yeah, that's a fee that can definitely be removed, and it's annoying.
Yeah, the funny thing is, this podcast is powered, if you will, by the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association, and our executive director has to worry about our PCI compliance, and she used the same word you did, which was bullshit fee. So, so PCI compliance makes our eyeballs hurt, makes our head want to explode, and that's why Tyler and Merchant Cost Consulting is there for us. One less itty bitty detail to just make you really want to scream and shout. Definitely check that out with Tyler. Now, another thing we had a really good conversation about is e-commerce, right? And so I believe you've worked with some practices. Just for me to set the stage for a moment, bear with me. There are some distributors that do offer e-commerce solutions for pharmacy, right? So there are some distributors out there that really set up your e-commerce pharmacy. It's basically a matter of you almost getting a part or almost a commission or a revenue share off the sales of those drugs that get shipped automatically. So the argument is that my customer's more compliant, I'm making more money by volume, not margin, right? So I'm making money because now that client, maybe that client is now spending $50 a month on flea control, and so now I'm getting maybe $10 per month on that client. I'm making more money because that client is actually getting auto ship. I'm competing with Chewy, I'm competing with PetMed Express. But if I sell it out of my practice, I'm probably making $25 a month or $25 on that month's worth of flea control or heartworm prevention. So some entrepreneurial veterinarians really would prefer to set up their own online pharmacy. So Tyler, I know you've got a little bit of advice on that. So feel free, dig into the details of what it means to have an online pharmacy.
Yeah, I mean, the pharmacy space is a little bit different. Obviously, if you can add revenue, do it, but you want to make sure you're doing it correctly and not, cutting off your hands and feet. So when it comes to the pharmacy space, it's considered as high risk in the payment industry. And because it's considered high risk, we tend to see it's higher cost to process in that space. So that's one thing to consider. And then second to that, because it's online, anytime you're taking a payment, the best way to take a payment is face to face. When it's over the phone or online, again, it all comes down to risk. Because it's over the phone or online, it's considered a little bit more risky. Therefore, the cost to take that payment is a little more expensive. So online pharmacies, you're going to see, at least from a pricing standpoint, it's going to be a bit higher than the practice itself. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but just something to consider while you're looking around for options. Don't be alarmed when it's a little bit higher.
Right. So we talked about platforms like Shopify and WooCommerce and Wix. So there are a lot of options, right? So you may want to set up your online pharmacy as a separate e-commerce business unto itself, separate from the practice, separate from your PIMS. Are there any of those, any PIMS, any insights into really the best system for setting up an e-commerce? So I'm gonna ask you that in a two-part question. So in your experience, what's the best, most convenient way to set up your own online pharmacy?
The best and most convenient way. I mean, the best way is to find a solution that's integrated with your current operation, right? If there's a solution out there that can keep everything, somewhat under one umbrella, that would be my recommendation. As far as the best solution out there, there really are so many. I wouldn't say that we have, a flagship favorite. Obviously, Shopify, those big ones out there, they're huge. Those are great. I don't think you're gonna make a mistake by going with one of the big brands out there. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a favorite. I would say look first for something that's gonna work with your current system. Keep everything somewhat tied. If that doesn't make sense, then shop around a couple of the big ones and see from a pricing standpoint what makes the most sense.
Yeah, so the problems I've even encountered in my little old retail store is the integrated solution, like you said, it makes operations so much easier. I can have that integration with the patient record. I now know what the patient has gotten and received. My inventory can be managed pretty easily. A lot of that is more automated, more direct. However, so that's ideal, that's convenient. However, there's a cost to that, and sometimes that cost ends up making it not profitable. But on the flip side, if you go with a larger dedicated e-commerce site like Shopify or WooCommerce, you can make more money. However, that's a much more manual process where you might even need to hire somebody to do it.
Right. So there's a convenience fee essentially to integration. So you have to kind of weigh that out. How much are you anticipating doing through the online pharmacy? There's a lot of variables that go into that. Usually, from the practices that we work with, the integration comes first, just from a time perspective. People at the front desk who are, taking all those payments, you want to make sure that, your practice manager, whoever may be, happy and not adding more work to their plate. So the integration is super important. You're going to see a little bit higher cost, but on the flip side, it's not going to take you guys as much to, keep track of the data, keep track of the, inventory, the billing, etc. So you have to kind of weigh those two out. It's a little tug and pull there. So yeah.
Hey, so maybe you have an opinion. I want to hear it if you do. So what do you think when veterinarians say, I don't care about my pharmacy revenue. I'm just going to let Chewy take it, or I'm going to let PetMed Express take it. What do you think about that when you hear veterinarians say that?
Well, my first thought is I can maybe understand why. It's just another thing to add to the plate. But on the flip side, it's revenue. We all love our pets. We're going to spend money on our pets. Why not capture that? Path of least resistance. If I can go into my local veterinarian, get what I need while I'm there, or online from my computer, or auto ship monthly directly from them, that's much easier than me, going on the web, looking through Chewy or Amazon or whatever. If my veterinary practice can tell me exactly what I need, they have it, set me up, I'm good to go. So, path of least resistance.
Yeah, and so if there are any pet owners who happen to come into this podcast, I'm a big believer that as veterinarians lose more sources of revenue, pet owners are going to pay more for care. So what I mean by that is right now, the sale of drugs, like flea control, heartworm prevention, flea collars, combs, shampoos, those things, that actually subsidizes the more expensive care like surgeries, intensive care, complex cases, complex diagnostics. And so when you take away that common source or easy source of revenue and you start giving that money to Chewy or PetMed Express or any of the larger online pharmacies, you actually are going to end up paying more money across more sources, And I think it's actually going to contribute to inflation and increasing the cost of care overall for pet owners.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of the more that you can, the more ways you can generate revenue, the more you protect yourself and deliver a good quality product, and you keep access to care. So you keep prices good that allows pet owners to say yes.
Right.
Well, Tyler, I really do want to hear more about you and your expertise in merchant cost consulting. So tell me, you have a great backstory. So tell me how merchant cost consulting started and how you operate.
Yeah, so we officially established in 2016. It's a family-owned business. My cousin and a few partners started that after working for one of the larger payment processors out there. So we, like I said, we spent several years on that side of the fence, learning the ins and outs of the industry, working our way up. And then we saw an opportunity of, geez, they're really overcharging these folks. Let's educate them. Let's help them out. So that's how MCC was started. We're based out of Boston, like I said, family owned. We're all for the independent business owners. That's our focus. So anytime we can help local independent businesses like ourselves, it's the best.
Yeah, that's what I love. As a veterinarian who's spent lots of time on the trade show floor, that's my job as technical services veterinarian. I've stood in those booths helping veterinarians make decisions about products. And I think that's a good question to ask for these small business owners, right? Who am I doing business with? How are they structured? Are they a large corporation or a family owned business? And if we think about it, if the independent practice goes away, like everybody thinks, a lot of family businesses outside of veterinary medicine are also going to go away, right? So I believe when you have a lot of small businesses, it leads to a vibrant, healthy ecosystem. I like that word, ecosystem, and family.
It does. It does. Independent is the way to go from not only this industry, but just think about when you want to go out to eat. You're thinking about your favorite local restaurant. You know the chef, you know the waitress. You're not thinking about, McDonald's. So that's how I see the independent vet space. You want that local home feel. These folks are your neighbors. They know your pet. They know your background. They're asking about your family. It's a completely different level of care, and it's day and night, at least on my end when I bring my dog in.
Nice. Yeah, no, I love that comparison, right? So you deliver care to the veterinary industry like veterinarians deliver care to their patients. You are one of the unsung heroes behind the scenes helping veterinarians do good in the world. So thank you very much for that. Just love to ask this question. Hope it doesn't put you on the spot. It might. So how do you also work with corporate practices or national practices? What does that look like?
Yeah, so our process is the same in terms of how we're achieving results. What I'll say is the focus is there's a bigger need on the independent side. And what I mean by that is when and if we're working with the corporate practices, because they're so big, they have a whole department, finance department, a CFO, a controller, a VP of finance, 10 people dedicated specifically, maybe even one person specifically for this line item. So there isn't as much of a need for our service. We can definitely help them. We just see a much bigger need on the independent, smaller side because one, they don't have the bandwidth, and two, they don't have the revenue as leverage to get that cost down. So we can help corporate practices. We do. There's not much of a need. The cost savings is much higher from a percentage standpoint on the independent side.
Yeah, so great point. The idea, and it leads me into my next question. Veterinarians who own their practice oftentimes feel isolated and alone. They don't have the resources they need to really drive profit And I was always taught profit is freedom. It allows you to take vacations, take care of your family, take care of the people who work for you, make sure you have good prices, all those things. So one of my questions that leads into this is, other than hiring you and companies like you and working with advisors and experts and insiders, what's your advice for independents for being competitive and, making sure that they still can compete with these corporate practices?
I think to stay competitive, you have to lean on what makes you different. And what makes you different is that independence. So lean on that. Like I said before, my experience with my local vet versus when I lived in Boston for some time, I was going to a corporate vet. It was it was like in and out. How many patients can we see as fast as possible? There was no connection. I just felt like I was being used. It was very quick. Versus now, my home, my local, I know who's giving my dog care. They know me. They know Benny. It just feels warmer. So lean on that independence. I know for any pet owners out there, they feel the same way. It's just a different level of care. So lean on that.
So proclaim your independence with pride.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then engage insiders and experts like yourself. Really, Tyler, I'm not kidding when I say I didn't really think how important this was until I started to connect the dots. That really, veterinarians who provide health care always, always, always are concerned with the cost. We face convenience euthanasias. We face euthanasias due to the cost of care. We see clients having to make really bad decisions. We know that when people have difficulties with housing, with paying for food, with paying for dog food, with paying just to have a house, there's housing insecurity, all those things that go with an economic difficulties, that any way we can save money to pass that savings on to our customers is going to mean that we now can actually deliver better care to animals. So that's how that's all connected.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so one of the last things, I'm hoping we have a few listeners who are going to call you up and ask about your services. Last thing is, how do you get paid? How does that work?
Yeah, so our model is unique and everyone seems to like this. It's a performance-based model. So what that means is if we can come into the practice and successfully bring the practice savings, we're just sharing a percent of the savings. So there's no annual fee, there's no monthly fee. It's 100% on can we deliver results? If so, then we're taking a percent of the savings that we hopefully find under the table for you. So if we find savings, win-win. If not, that means you're in a really good spot. If we can't find you, no risk. So worst case scenario, we come in there, we go to bat for the practice, and hypothetically we strike out. You never paid us a penny.
Nice. Very, very good. We like to hear that. I know veterinarians like to save money, and they are very risk averse. I know I'm risk averse, so it's great to know that we could engage with you and try your services at no risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're always happy. Whether you want to use our service or not, we're here as a tool as part of the IVPA. Reach out if you have questions just in the space in general about specific processors or specific fees. Everyone here is happy to give you guys the info. We'll look at your data. We'll tell you what we can save you. And if you feel the service makes sense, great. If not, no worries. We're happy to just stay here and be a tool to lean on.
Wonderful. All right, so every veterinarian always wants to know this. So tell me about your animals, your pets. Who's living in your house, sharing your bed right now?
Yeah, taking over my bed.
Taking over your bed. Yes, let's hear
I
it.
have a small dog. He's a terrier. His name's Benny. He's 8 years old now. He's all black. He's starting to show a lot of white gray hair, but yeah, he's incredible. For such a small guy, I feel like I need two king beds, one for him and one for me and my wife. So he's the best.
Where'd he come from? How'd you find him?
Um, through family, My parents had a similar dog, and someone was getting rid of getting rid of Benny, and I jumped on it, and best decision ever.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
So, did
yeah.
you name him or did he come with his name?
He did not come with a name. We named him. My wife named him. She said Benny, and I loved it from the start.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Tyler, I think we've covered just about everything in this short amount of time. Are there any questions I should have asked that I didn't ask?
No, I don't think so. And I think, like you had mentioned, I know this topic isn't the most exciting, but it's definitely something that you should at least look at. You know, take a quick peek. If you feel like, oof, this is really high, reach out. We'll help you out. If you're in a good spot, then just keep going. Kudos to you. Keep on them.
Nice. So, just to wrap it up, I want to remind everybody that Tyler with Merchant Cost Consulting is just like all of us in veterinary medicine, really wanting to keep costs low so that we can provide good care to patients. And just again, the whole connection between business and the amount of or the level of care that you can deliver. So, really, really important. As boring, I hate to say it, Tyler, I gotta say it, as boring as the topic is, it's actually a really important part and a really important piece to how medicine gets done.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Hey, Tyler, thank you so much for your time today, and we will make sure our listeners have access to your information so they can reach out and take advantage of your expertise and your superpower as an insider.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Thank you, Tyler.